Full throttle here. And that is that. Hey, it's Baz here from Aussie RC Playground and welcome to another aeroplane review. Today we are going to be looking at the FMS T-28 Trojan 1.4 meter. But to kick off this review, we need to start off with the specs. Now this plane has a 1400 millimeter wingspan or 1.4 meters. Overall length is 1085 millimeters. Flying weight is 2,450 grams or just shy of 2.5 kilos. Comes with a 70 amp ESC paired up to a 4258 650 kV brushless outrunner, spinning a 13x9 3-bladed prop. Now, it also has 2x9 gram and 5x17 gram servos pre-installed, as well as flaps and retracts already installed on the plane. Now, FMS do recommend a 2600 milliamp 4S battery, but I used a couple of different ones and we'll talk about those in a minute. And of course, the plane comes as a plug and play and requires a 6-channel receiver for you to be able to operate the plane correctly. Now for batteries, I was using anything from a 2200 4S all the way up to a 3300. I think I may have even got a 4000 that I squeezed in here at one point, but it does become a little bit heavier with the 4000. I guess it will really depend on the type of battery that you have and how heavy it actually is. But these are some of the batteries that I was using. You can see I've got a few different ones. I've got a 60C, a 40C, and another 60C down the bottom here. These are all more than capable of operating this plane. I think a 3300 4S is probably the ideal size for this particular aircraft. You just need to keep a bit of an eye on the overall height of the battery. The canopy does sink down a little bit into the battery compartment, so if your battery is a bit too tall, you're going to find that you won't be able to sit the canopy on there properly. Alright, so now it's time to talk about CG, and the manual says 80 to 85 mil back from the leading edge of the wing. I found this ideal CG position to be on the second line of the second molded line of your aircraft. So pretty much just outside of where these black patches are on either side of the wing. Flip the plane upside down to measure your CG, of course, and just put your finger right on that line. You should be pretty much right. I didn't have to do any other modifications to the plane. No additional weight was required or anything like that. Just follow that line as your CG line and you should be pretty much good to go. So yeah, CG is pretty much spot on. No additional mods required. Now assembly time on the Trojan should take you no more than about an hour to an hour and a half. It's actually pretty easy to put together. But there is one thing that you need to keep in mind. The vertical stabilizer comes pre-installed or kind of dummy fitted on the fuselage right out of the box, and you'll need to take it off in order to obviously put your horizontal stabilizer, your elevator. Now, I think mine, just due to transportation, perhaps different climate or what have you, my vertical stabilizer was kind of stuck to the fuselage just through maybe humidity and moisture and so forth. And it actually took a little bit of effort to pull it apart. I had to wedge a steel ruler in here, kind of separate the foam to try and not break anything or flex anything out of shape. So just keep that in mind. I don't think it's going to happen with every one of these planes. I think it's just, well, first of all, reviewer's curse. I mean, something has to be wrong. Of course, just through the fact that I live on the other side of the planet, it's different climates, things would have been in boxes for God knows how long. So yeah, that could be just because of that. Other than that, once I took it off and fitted it all up, everything just goes together with screws. There's also 4 screws on the underside of the plane, 2 in the front and 2 in the back main wing. There's also a spar, of course, that goes through the middle. And then they've done something really cool here. There's a board right in the battery compartment, and then your main wing just kind of clips onto the board rather. And then from there are some wires that goes to your receiver. All the wires are labeled as well, so it makes it super easy to plug everything into your receiver. And yeah, away you go. You've got your ailerons, flaps, retracts, everything's working. And it's just super easy to set up. Now, I suppose one downside is if the board fails, you kind of lose everything. But these are pretty straightforward. Like, you really shouldn't blow the board. It should be totally fine. And I haven't had any problems so far, and I've put quite a few flights through this thing. You can see, of course, how the battery is set up in this fuselage. plenty of room in the length, just not a lot of height, just mainly due to the canopy. Speaking of the canopy, if I can grab it here very quickly, probably the only criticism I have regarding this canopy, which is quite a big thing as well, it clips in like so, and then it just basically pushes into place just like that, and it doesn't feel like it's going to come off, right? It feels totally fine, and I have full confidence this canopy will never come off mid-flight. But it's just trying to pull it apart. That's the issue. And believe me, the first couple of times that you do this, until sort of these plastics wear in a little bit, these plastic clips, it does take some effort to pull the canopy out and clip it back in. So I kind of wish that FMS would maybe give us something to grab to be able to sort of put this, have something to grip. You can probably make up some tape and put some tape back here. There's probably a couple of different ways that you can make this work. But yeah, there's just nothing here for us to grip to really grab on the canopy. That's probably the only criticism. I know it would probably take away the scale look of it if you put some grip tabs on here or something. But that's just the only criticism I have. Other than that, the only other thing I would mention regarding the assembly process is just in regards to your flaps. When you set up your radio and so forth, you are going to need a little bit of down elevator. I haven't set mine up yet, so I can't really give you percentages of what it is that you need, but you are going to need it, because I tried using the flaps once and the plane just shot straight up, and I just haven't gotten around to setting up my down elevator to counter that. But that's pretty much it as far as assembly. Pretty straightforward, no real tricks here. Most of the stuff's already done for you. Yeah, it's just pretty much plug and play. It's a pretty simple setup. Now it's time for my favorite part of the review, which is to give you a little bit of pilot feedback. So flying the Trojan T-28 1.4 meter. First of all, I gotta say that despite its intimidating looks and how big it is, this thing flies brilliantly. Once I got it airborne, it felt so locked in. I felt comfortable flying it, and the nerves went away fairly quickly. So don't let something like this kind of intimidate you and be scared of it. As long as you have a decent enough runway to take off from, because it is a tricycle landing gear, you'll be able to fly this pretty much anywhere. It has a fairly good tight turning circle as well, so even in smaller than usual places, you'll fly this quite comfortably. It has so much power that you can cruise on by and then power out and just go vertical with it without any issues at all. And of course, coming down full speed, especially off a dive, it's surprisingly quick. It's very quick. As I said, you are going to need to kind of set up a little bit of negative elevator, to mix in with your flaps. That's probably the only thing that you really need to worry about, and that's going to take a little bit of trial and error, just a couple of flights to be able to iron that out and figure out where your percentages need to be. But aside from that, as far as flight characteristics, I really couldn't falter this thing too much. It doesn't feel like it's going to stall anywhere. It floats into landing very easy. You can flare it quite comfortably, no problem at all. Powering out of, on takeoff, even with some lush grass, it gets up and going, no problem at all. As I said, this thing has plenty of power, no shortage of power at all. The only criticisms I have, and one of them is not the plane's fault or FMS's fault, it's just the design of the aircraft in general. That's just how it is. It's the tricycle landing gear and the fact that you don't have a lot of clearance here. You've got probably an inch or an inch and a half of clearance on the front here between the prop and the ground. And if you're going to be taking off on some rough fields, be prepared for that prop to really cut the lawn for you as you're taking off. So you'll probably, a couple of flights and you'll have a nice clean runway, I suppose. But that's something that you got to keep in mind. So if you don't have the perfect runways out there, just be mindful, this may not be the right plane for you to start with. Despite how good it might be in the air, taking off and landing could be a bit of an issue if you don't have the right runway. So that's one criticism. And again, that's not the fault of the plane or FMS by any means. It's just that's how the planes are, right? Now, this one I am going to criticize FMS on because the landing gear, unlike my FMS Super Viper that had a little bit of an issue with the nose landing gear being a bit weak, this one is in reverse. The front nose gear is actually fantastic. I've had no issues with that nose gear whatsoever. Super strong, very good. And of course the landing gear on this does have suspension, so you do have a little bit of movement on the suspension of this plane, which is great. So when you do come in, even if you're coming in a bit hot, you will actually soak up the landings a bit, which is really nice. So front nose gear, not a problem. Where I've had my issues has been on the main landing gear, primarily on the doors themselves, the actual, these doors. I came across a couple of issues with these where they actually butt into each other. So what I ended up doing to avoid this from happening is I actually heated up these doors with a hot air gun and kind of folded the doors opposite each other. So that, I think, is a design flaw on FMS as part. They need to tweak that just a very little bit and to be able to fix it. The other issue I've had with this is just the way that the doors are attached to the main retracts as well. The bottom door is just on kind of like a little screw, so it tends to swivel around quite easily. So when it sometimes closes up, it's not lining up 100% to where it's supposed to be, so it's a little bit off. So they may need to address that as well. The other issue I had is mainly with this one here on this side. There's a little kind of pin that sort of holds on to the main strut, and that's only just a very thin plastic piece that's broken off, and that's obviously through, I don't know, maybe tall grass, rough landing, rough terrain, whatever the issue might be. I've also had a bit of an issue with this particular strut here. I cannot get it to stop swiveling. I've tightened every screw that you can possibly imagine. I can't get this thing to stop swiveling. So I don't know what I'm going to do about this one. And what's most annoying is I can't get these doors separately. The doors apparently come with the entire retract, which is quite expensive. And I don't need the entire retract if I don't want to. I just want the doors. And I don't think FMS offer that. So again, something that I think FMS need to address. Not just the design of those components, but also making them available as spares, because I'm having issues and I don't want to spend a whole bunch of money on retracts. I just need those doors. So that's probably the only criticism I have regarding the plane. Other than that, as I said, great flight characteristics, heaps of power, easy assembly, looks amazing. Like when this is in the air, out of all the planes that I've had recently, this one stops the crowd dead still. It could be joggers, could be people walking their dogs, riding their bikes. People just stop and watch this plane because it just flies amazing and it looks fantastic in the air. So keep an eye out, just regarding the landing gear and the design of the landing gear, if you don't have, perfect runways. But other than that, this thing's good to go. Like if you want something like this, can't really knock it too much. I think just the landing gear is probably the only thing that FMS need to address at this point. Alright, so that pretty much wraps it up for this review of the FMS T-28 Trojan 1.4 meter. I'm going to leave you now with a flight demo which won't be edited or have music in it or anything like that. It'll just be a short video, start to finish, so you can see how the plane actually flies. Of course, if you enjoy this content, please be sure to give it a thumbs up. Don't forget to subscribe if you're new, and as always, check out the video description down below. I'll have links in there to the FMS website where you can check out the plane. I'll also have a link in there to where you can get one of these here in Australia, and of course the links to my social media pages. I thank you all very much for watching, and I'll be speaking to you all next time. That got up pretty easy. Not bad at all. Very nice. Very, very nice. Nice and low. Too bad about that landing gear door. Alright, we're going to dive bomb it here.
4 minutes.
Nice and fast. Full throttle.
Slowing it down, throttle off, let it cruise on by. What a gorgeous looking plane. What a gorgeous looking plane. Alright.
Flaps half.
Oh,
Flaps up.
that's the wrong button. I want it to go
Middle rate.
middle rates. I need a elevator mix with my flaps, which I haven't set up. Just cruising on by, and full power straight up into the sky. We're going to roll it and bring it back down.
Three minutes.
That's nice. That is cruising very nicely. Full throttle again. This thing.
Gear down.
Gear down, the dirty pass as they call it. A little bit of throttle around the bend. Coordinate a bit of rudder.
Gear up.
Gear back up again. We're going to do a couple more passes and see if we can start our approaches for a landing. That is such a nice plane. Such a nice plane.
Gear down.
Alright, gear down once again. We're going to go over the trees here. And we're going to start bleeding off some power. I'm probably too high up actually. But we'll see how... Oh no, I think I'll be alright. Not bad. Not bad. I'm happy with that.